Songs of Conquest is closely comparable to playing a game of paintball in a random forest, because before you ever see or get a hint of where your enemy is, you've already died. And I don't mean hit by a paintball, I mean gruesomely ripped apart by a random bear. This is to say, the game's unforgiving, and if you're not prepared, the wildlife will kill you more than your enemies will. We play as one of 4 factions, from peasants that somehow alliance with forest creatures, which kind of destroys my earlier example, to old senile men that combine the souls of the dead into living armor and literally control the plague. The goal is simple: exterminate the planet of lesser beings, also known as everyone not in my faction, and rewrite history so it's like they never existed. I'll show you this by playing Arlon, a faction of peasants where the strong rise and the weak are forgotten, along with magical deepwood beings. So, with no more delay, let's take over the world. We start the game surrounded by common materials such as gold, wood, and stone, and rare materials such as glimmerweave, ancient amber, and celestial ore. All of said things are crucial for building a strong and functional society. Although we are peasants, the lowest of the low, I had a plan. So while I'm collecting, let me quickly explain the end-game plan. Our faction is a mix of peasants and fae, or deepwood beings. The Queen Fae has an ability called Fae Fire that has an unlimited range but targets random enemies. This sounds good, but a bit unreliable at first, but the fix is quite simple. For this downside, I just need to have more. So if I can get a full team of Fae Queens and 1 or 2 tanks, we would be unstoppable. Now, with a few battles done and a strong enough army to make basic enemies flee, it was time to get a second leader, by the name of giving us bonus spell damage for when we're using her as a leader in battles. At this point, fights with small groups, such as dogs and thieves, were nothing. And with a wealth of resources coming in, it was easy to build and upgrade the Fae Grove and get a research academy started, where we could increase the amount of units in each stack. Oh, yeah, stacks. Stacks are 1 unit that represents a lot more. So instead of having 1 unit that is 50 people, we have 50 people that is 1 unit. In any regard, the higher the number, the more killing power a unit has. Now, with my army getting stronger in power, I think it's about time we find our real enemies, and to do that, we have to get past this cannon squad, which, in hindsight, being an archer with a bow and arrow looking at an explosive cannon, I should have known how this battle would go. With this minor setback, it was time to level our other leader, and with a Fae Queen already in our army, I was in an amazing spot for world domination. Everything was going as planned, and after waiting a few turns for my unit production, it was time to expand. We started this process by heading south to find a town of small-brained reptile people. I knew this because they left 8 frogmen to guard their entire town, which was a small oversight. We would then convert this town to our own to get all the buildings to use for ourselves, meaning we would need to stay in the main city hall. But there was another leader wandering around, so we went to fix that first. However, we didn't fix anything. Instead, we caused more problems because we lost that battle. Bad. And not only that, but the reptiles were also capturing my main base. So we ran back to defend with our main army, absolutely eviscerated the defenses to get our main city back, and began to make a grand armory to get our damage up. With this caused a back and forth battle of taking the town back from the reptiles over and over as they tried to take it from me, leaving my army stunted and my exploration for materials halted as well. As a subsequent side effect of all of this, we would need to go to the market to buy all the materials for our upgrades, leaving our gold too low to continue buying units. To say this was looking bad was an understatement. So I hired a new leader to take some of the pressure off after he leveled. And during that quick leveling process, he almost lost his entire army in a winning battle. Unfortunately, on the way back to the base, a new faction appeared, the Barony of Loth, a cultist faction full of diseased, senile old people, a crazy bald lady, and plague-ridden rats. To say the least, our leader was massacred, but not without vengeance. Now, with our upgrades allowing us to have more light-based artillery units in each stack, we need more glimmerweave. So we captured a small glimmerweave node for 1 extra glimmerweave every turn. This is also where the last faction shows itself. Introducing the Barya, a faction of trading orcs and giants along with average people with guns. Along with this faction's arrival, this moment is a shift in the game I would like to call "Why is everybody looking at me and me alone?" Because at this moment, not one, not two, but all three factions are looking at my faction like a scheduled meal, and continue to do so for the rest of the game. So although I'm leveling my Grand Army to get more damage, and my Academy to get more units in every stack, whenever they're taken by one of the three factions looking to kill me, I lose those upgrades until I retake the capital. So the clear and obvious solution was to get rid of the problem by liquidating my enemies with light. The only problem is it took me over 20 turns to realize this, and I was only getting harassed by a small team of under 150 weak units. After swiftly taking out the reptile people, I was quickly put on defense, as I was getting attacked by literal senior citizens. I was taking and retaking my own property for an eternity, till I said screw it, and pushed out to kill the traitors. And I should have done this far earlier, because they had one base with way too many melee units, so it was a pushover to take, leaving just me and the old ones left. But in hindsight, this was a terrible situation. Let me explain. I've been getting screwed over all game because my cities keep getting taken, meaning the units that should have been building up over time keep resetting. On top of that, if you remember the layout of our map at the start of the game, each faction has a corner, and we've only been on the left side. We have 3 bases on the left side, so they must have 6. And all their units have been stacking all game, so we need to pull something out big to win. I started save scumming to try to win, and let me tell you, absolutely nothing worked. Turns out, when you're getting pounded by 3 factions in the free-for-all for hours, there isn't much you can do to come back when all the resources are gone. I tried everything. Sustained defense, where I tried to wear out their reinforcements, and well, they just had too much. So, I lost. I tried rushing down their base, and well, they just came back. So, again, I lost. I tried building a new army, and well, that didn't work because they just ran down my main army and then killed the side army. There was no way to win, and judging by the charts, the best time to push ahead was around turn 126, when I was running back and forth. So, who's up for a bit of time manipulation? Or, I guess, the load game button if you're boring. I proceeded to go back to turn 117, 10 turns before the peak. This is where I would change the game. First, by issuing a new law: no elderly and no necromancers. I started enforcing this by chopping down a soul-filled armor and showing the elderly the light. And after topping up my army, I headed straight to their base, with no hesitation. Being on the defense was the wrong choice. It always was. I rushed down their main base and promptly rained down light-based explosive magic ordnance on their heads, resulting in another landslide victory. I decided to convert the base to gain the buildings, and I started working on the other leader, maxing out their smaller army to join the witch hunt for the elderly. After a good bit of searching, I eventually find their last remaining base guarded by the shiniest head in the land, especially when mixed with light-based artillery. Now for the lizard people, which were easy to vanquish because they tried to put up a fight with frog people with sticks and a few riding big birds. And the last faction alive, the traitors, and I must say they were the most underwhelming of all of them, with an army consisting of one small man playing the pipes. And with that, I think the game is over. So with no regard for my safety, I walked into their city and took it. And as a last-ditch effort from their last remaining army, they came out of the fog, took the undefended city back, and disappeared. This is when I followed them closely into the fog, and well, the rest was history. Or shall I say, lack thereof, because we now won the battle, and that means I can write my enemies out of existence. This is where we were given a beautiful victory screen, and going to the summary page, we can now have a long gooning session over how good we did. And that does it for this video. We used the never-ending human charisma to get magical beings to do all the work for us, as well as a bit of time travel to change our fate. I hope you enjoyed the video. Like, subscribe, comment, stay hydrated as always, and I'll see you in the next one.